No.
You haven't got any news at all. That's unlike you. What about you, Frenchman Henri?
No news from this quarter.
You haven't got any news this week at all?
No.
Oh, right. Okay. Okay, right. Who else have we got? Richard, have you got any news for us?
No, no news.
I tell you what, you guys are really newsless this week. All we got to do now is find out if Anne's got anything else to say.
Well, we did have one of my Irish friends sent me a post about gladiators, saying that
Anne, are you sure it wasn't a Frenchman? It'd be a French letter, wouldn't it?
Anyway,
go on.
Anyway, he was saying that they weren't all muscle and whatever, but they had quite a good layer of fat on them because it helped.
Who did?
The gladiators. They liked a layer of fat on them because when they got wounded, it bled more. But if they'd have been all muscular and that, they would have had to leave the arena because they would have been too wounded. No, they had a nice layer of fat on them, you know.
And can I just ask you something? We're all, I'm sure all of us are curious, right? I'm just really curious, right? Why have you started talking about gladiators?
Well, it was just, you know, a bit of information that was sent to me via the internet, and I thought I would share it.
Right. Okay.
You know, we talked about gladiators in the past, haven't we?
Yeah, we have.
And gladiators, you know, obviously, he was talking about the film Gladiator, and Crow, you know, being like not that well endowed, really. And
what do you mean? Russell Crowe's not well endowed?
Well, you know, he was.
How the hell do you know?
He wasn't fat, was he? So
hang on a minute. Being well endowed is that you've got a large.
No, I mean, oh God, I'm getting myself into a hole.
Yeah, you are. You are really getting confused on this one now.
I better try and get Adele.
Yeah, I thought. All right, guys, let's just crack on. That just went straight over my head. Then that did. Okay.
I could find the post if you want.
Anne, can you just right, Anne, right, can you just tell everybody about your milk pitcher? Right, she's gone. Right, okay, I'm going to ask one of you. If I mention the Bishop Ussher to any of you, i.e. I mention it to Henry, what do you think of, Henry? Who the hell was the Bishop Ussher? Who was he?
I haven't got a clue.
Oh, right, okay, right. Have you ever heard of the Bishop Ussher chronology?
No.
Oh, right, this is not a good start.
Well.
It's really not going well. Right. So, Goff, have you ever heard of Bishop Ussher?
No, enlighten me.
Oh God, this is going to be hard work today.
I had heard of him before you mentioned him.
Okay.
But I had no idea that he was who he was, you know, but he was a Presbyterian, was he?
He definitely Protestant through and through, yes.
All right. Okay.
Right, can I just say this, right? The Bishop Ussher is one of the most influential people on the history and archaeology of our planet who ever lived. Right? This guy's teachings, this guy's work is basically fundamental to all our dating systems, everything, chronology, and all the rest of it, even through to this day. And what I'd like to do is very, very quickly today, because I don't have until 10, 10 as we did last night. The lecture last night went from 7:30 to 10:10.
He's
So I'm going to try and
Irish.
do the. Yeah, he was Irish. Yeah,
He was.
top of the world to you. So shut up. Right, here we go. I'm going to give you a quick introduction on the Bishop Ussher, right? And then what I'm not going to do is everything else that we did. We looked about Bishop Ussher last night. What we are then going to do is go directly to his work and to his chronology, right? Which we've just been talking about earlier on. Anyway, back to my wonderful Bishop Ussher, right? James Ussher was born on the 4th of January, 1581, and died on the 21st of March, 1656. He was the Church of Ireland's Archbishop of Armagh, and he was the primate of all Ireland between 1625 and 1656. He was a Protestant through and through. He was a prolific scholar and church leader who today is most famous for his identification of the letters of Ignatius of Antioch, who's massive in regards to the church. However, for me, he's massive in regards to his chronology, the chronology that sought to establish the time and date of the creation. Now, this, you know, that's not really what that for me. The Bishop Ussher himself is very important for giving some idea of chronology to the world by looking at the dates, by looking at the order of things. For example, in the Bible, right? So where some of you might think, right, you know, the Bible's a complete load of fiction. For me, particularly the Old Testament, if you look at the walls of Jericho, proven the walls of Jericho did collapse when Kathleen Kenyon excavated them in the 1950s. Lots of people looking at events like Noah's flood. Yeah, we've proven that, and so on and so on. Whether you want to believe the Bible's real or not is not really what we're talking about now. But Bishop Ussher decided that the world was created on the entrance of the night preceding the 23rd day of October, and the year before Christ, 404 BC, that is around 6 p.m. on the 22nd of October in the year 4004 years BC, when the earth was finally offered and created for us. So in other words, the earth was created at around 6 p.m. on the 22nd of October in 404 BC. That may sound absolute barking and absolute nuts to you guys, right? However, this is what everybody in their right mind believed up until about the 1850s. And I have mentioned Bishop Ussher in practically every single lecture that we did involving the Mesolithic period. We mentioned his name in the lecture about Brixham. We mentioned his name in regards to Reverend Buckland. We mentioned his name the other week when we were looking at the barrow diggers. We've mentioned him a lot, and it obviously proves that you guys, when you're listening to my lectures, are half asleep. But then again, you do pay me, so I'm happy about that. So anyway, Bishop Ussher's chronology. I know Goff remembers absolutely every single word, and he was joking earlier on when he said he'd never heard of Bishop Ussher. Isn't that right, Goff? Yeah, don't say anymore. So the Ussher chronology, the chronology, there we go. According to Ussher, formulated from a literal reading of the Old Testament, and this man himself, the book itself is actually still. Is still, and the work at Bishop Ussher is still followed today by young Earth creationists, which holds that the universe was created only a few thousand years ago by God, as described in the first 2 chapters of the biblical book of Genesis. Ussher's work fell into disrepute in the 1800s. However, the reason why I'm saying it's massively influential on modern day archaeology and history is he basically said everything's got an order, everything's got a chronology. His dates were completely bloody wrong, but he did say that dinosaurs existed. He did say that this existed. He did say that that existed, and this came, and then that came, and then Adam came, and then there was a great flood, and then this happened, blah, blah, blah. It may not be all taken literally, but the narrative of a chronology, this comes before this comes before this comes before that, is actually the sound teachings of modern day archaeology, right? And I'm sure I just heard a sheep, but that's life. Anyway, so this chronology in front of us, massive. I really, really love it, and there's quite a comical one of these. But what we're going to do, there we go. It was originally there it is, the full title of Ussher's work in Latin. The Annals Veteris Testamenti ea primae mundi origine deducae una come rerum asitacarum et agitacarum chronologico a temporis historico principico usque ade macabacororum initiae producatum. Annals of the Old Testament, deduced from the first origins of the world, the chronology of the Asiatic and Egyptian matters, together produced from the beginning of history, time, up to the beginning of the Maccabees. Now, actually, the Maccabees were actually Jewish rebels up until the reign of Octavian. The first Roman emperor. So we're talking about just a few years before the birth of Christ. So the whole history of the world up until then. It's really interesting in that it does actually put things into a chronological order, even though the dates are completely wrong. Now, nobody's saying that the dinosaurs walked this earth for a day in the year 4004 years BC or whatever, right? We're not saying that, but what we are saying is the recognition that dinosaurs did exist and the recognition that the earth was actually created. That is very important because the earth was created. It wasn't just found under a stone, right? By the way, I'm not to upset anyone. I know this completely disagrees with Henry's idea of the earth, because Henry's a member of the Flat Earth Society, right? Henry, you're completely wrong on that. It was created. Shut up. But anyway, it is work after all. So anyway, so the one thing about all of this, and by the way, we've got 4 people watching online. There'll probably be about 1 in a minute. Anyway, so Ussher's work was his contribution to the long-running theological debate on the age of the earth. This was a major concern of many Christian scholars over the centuries. So we're talking about the creation of the earth. Now, I actually used to be Hare Krishna. So the Mahabharat, the Hindu Mahabharat was something you should refer to, and obviously the wonderful works that we would refer to with Hare Krishna. But the one thing about all this is that there's a running thing, right? You can look at the Bhagavad Gita, which is the book of Hare Krishna, and obviously I mentioned Mahabharat, which is the Hindu book, and Hare Krishna is actually an offspring of Hinduism, and we mentioned the Mahabharat when we look at the sort of the idea of creation and all the rest of it. Lots of different cultures have an idea about the creation of the world, but for us in the Western Hemisphere, this whole thing about the chronology is very, very important. So we've got to have a chronology, and without a chronology, who are we? Because a knock on my door, bang bang. Yeah, who's there? Hare Krishna. No, that's okay. You can come in. Jehovah's Witness. What do you want? Right. I'm an archaeologist. Yeah. Okay. Right. Did you know dinosaurs walked the earth at the same time as human beings? There's evidence in the Olduvai Gorge, Latolai footprints over there in the same layer. There's dinosaur footprints. That's completely wrong. You don't believe in the work of Bishop Ussher. Bishop Ussher says the dinosaurs came before human beings. Now go away. Now, there is some sense in that. So obviously, when we talk about Jehovah's Witnesses, and I know Richard's a Jehovah's Witness, so sorry that I've just insulted you, Richard. But Richard, you're completely wrong.
Of course, they are Americans, so you know they have got a lot of dinosaurs in America. So you never know; they might have found something.
Henry's married to a dinosaur. You know, it's just don't go too far with the dinosaurs. But anyway, the one thing as well, right? This chronology, it just didn't occur from nowhere, right? In fact, there were other people working on this chronology. And it's sometimes said that creation was October the 23rd, 404 BC. There we go. It's written in blood. It's there. This is where we go with it, you know. So there was another chap who worked on a similar idea for creation, and interestingly enough, 404 BC was similar to another guy's work, which said that the Earth was created in 3929 BC. Right now, if you think about it, those two dates are really, really similar. They're not too far out. 70 odd years, right? They're not actually too far out. So other people are actually working on this chronological stuff at the same time, but nobody comes to this type of amazingness. And also, the work of Bishop Ussher was actually printed in English for all the three.
Oh,
what?
Excuse me, Dell's trying to get on.
Oh, I've been trying to get on with women for ages. Right? Okay. Right, okay, we're just gonna have to let him in. I wish he would turn up on time. Right, okay, here we go. Here we go. Del. Here we go. Hang on, he can't be trying to get on time. Right, Anne. Right, somebody's gonna. Richard. I'm gonna make you sort of co-host, and Richard's gonna look out for Del because we've got to crack on. So tell Del that Richard's looking out for him.
All right.
Right. Not in the public toilets, mind. Me and Richard know what the public toilets are like over by we are in. They're not in a good state. Right.
In the
Okay.
waiting room now.
Well, let him on.
I have.
All right. What you want, a medal?
Yes, please.
You're not bloody having one, pal. Right. Right. So, right. Crack on. Right. So, Bishop Ussher wasn't the only person to be thinking about this early chronology. And in fact, a certain guy also you've never heard of, none of you have ever heard of Sir Isaac Newton either. Sir Isaac Newton actually believed, well, actually, Sir Isaac Newton was English rather than Irish. So, you know, the Irish are a bit odd. So Sir Isaac Newton, this is interesting. Sir Isaac Newton believed that the Earth was created 4,000 years BC, which was 4 years away from Bishop Ussher. Right, there is actually a thing about Bishop Ussher, because Bishop Ussher believed that Jesus was actually born 4 BC, or maybe 5 BC, because what we do see is that King Herod dies in 4 BC, and obviously Jesus must have lived before the death of King Herod, because King Herod went and had all the babies massacred. Right. So anyway, that's something else we'll actually come on to. So also, this is rather interesting as well. Another guy who was actually working on when the Earth was actually founded is another guy who you will never come across, the Venerable Bede. The Venerable Bede said that the Earth was created 3,952 years BC. So lots of people are obsessed with the creation of the Earth, right? Oh, look at that there. Doesn't it look good? There's nothing wrong with a bit of Latin, right? Love it. But no room at the end of here. Hang on, there's a certain person called Meg, right? You've got to let him in. No room at the inn here. What the hell's going on with these people online? Right, anyway, so the other thing as well is that Ussher was influenced by the book of Jasher. And in the book of Jasher, it dates the worldwide flood to 2349 BC. And that's rather interesting, because what we do is, if we go back, so in other words, there's a lot going on here. He's reading wildly, right? And there you go. there's where the Great Flood occurs. Sort of. So we've got we've got the date of the Great Flood as 2349 BC. So he puts the Great Flood in 2349 BC based on the Book of Jasher, right? Which, to be honest with you, I've never ever come across the Book of Jasher at all. It's not the type of thing you come across in W.A. Smith's. So
Joshua.
one thing, no, Jasher,
Oh,
Jasher, the Book of Jasher.
oh, never heard of it.
No, I haven't heard of him either. You know, Nasher, Jasher, same difference. He was in a Beano. Anyway, so in other words, what we've got is that there we go. There we got Adam. There he is, Adam, and a partridge in a pear tree. So Adam is there, right? So Adam is at the beginning of this sort of creation, and the one thing is that we do see is the 6 days of creation in Genesis, right? Genesis 1 and 2, right? And we're not talking about the Genesis album 1 and 2. We're talking about Genesis in the Bible. It's a big difference. I know you're a big fan of Genesis, right? So anyway, and also God rested on the 7th day. So there you go. So he created all the earth in the 6 days, and then the earth is then born, and everything kicks off on the 22nd and 23rd and 22nd of October, 404 years BC. He saw it coming. He saw you guys coming as well. You're going to love the rest of this, right? Anyway, so the one thing as well is that going on to the chronologies, this sort of chronological thing. And sorry, it's not a lot more clearer. I haven't put a lot more clearer just to wind everybody up. So the chronologies of Ussher and other biblical scholars corresponded so closely because they use much the same method to calculate key events, i.e., the Bible. So lots of people sort of look at. So what we're going to do, we're going to look at another table. There we go, like this one. There we go. Strangely enough, Adam's date of birth there is 4111. We discussed this earlier on. It should be 404, but don't worry about that. It's all fine, guys and girls.
Are you all right, Cal?
Del, are you
I'm
living?
thanks on. I've just got I'm okay.
Okay. You've done this, haven't you?
Well,
Bishop
no, he
Ussher?
doesn't.
Yeah.
Anne, stop interfering. You God. Right. Anyway, right.
I'm Anne. I'm
All right.
you
Ure.
Okay. Okay.
Anne, stop interfering.
All right.
So one thing about this reading into the Bible is that Bishop Ussher also puts other events in. And what he basically puts in is Abraham's migration. There we go. Where's Abraham? There he is. There's Abraham. Approximately 2165 years BC. And what the other events he puts in there is the Exodus. There's nothing to do with Bob Marley, Henry. It's not the best album ever made, Exodus, right? Exodus is an event in the Bible, right? And basically what he's doing, Bishop Ussher, is looking at key events like the Exodus, and looking at all these other things that are going on, like Moses. We had this discussion earlier on about Moses possibly being the Egyptian pharaoh Akhenaten. But we looked at some differences there. The Akhenaten lived in the year, well, he died in the year 1536, right? And there's the Moses date there. So if Akhenaten and Moses are the same person, then there's something wrong with the dates. But one thing that we actually said earlier on was when you actually look at all this chronology, you start to think that if all of these things are in order, the only thing that's wrong is actually the dates, right? So what's happening is that the other wise thing that Bishop Ussher did, he had access to other documents, and the other documents looked at Babylon. And what he decided was, by looking at all his chronology, he decided, and it's actually off the scale now, right? It's actually off the scale. But what he actually did he actually put all of this stuff into the chronology. For example, when Nebuchadnezzar died in the year 562 BC and was replaced by Emil Marduk, he put all this into sort of the working dates of the Bible, and things started to make sense. One of the things that Bishop Ussher very much disagreed with is the birth of good old Jesus Christ, right? Now this was very awkward for Bishop Ussher, because initially what he wanted to do, he wanted to say the earth was created 4,000 years BC, because after all, God has likes to get things round dates, right? So but it wasn't a round date at all. But mind you, 4004 backwards is the same date, so maybe God went with that. So Bishop Ussher, right? Bishop Ussher took account of an error perpetrated by Dionysius of Exegius. Dionysius of Exegius was actually the creator of Anno Domini. So Dionysius of Exegius, Anno Domini, we get it from him. The thing is, right, I don't know why he didn't change the dating system Dionysius Exegius, and he would be one of the most famous people in history. But no, he said Anno Domini. So Ussher decided that the birth of Jesus, right? So he basically said 4004 is the beginning of the earth, and then he basically said 5 years BC, right, is the birth of Jesus, right? So if 5 years BC is the birth of Jesus, right? When you say BC, before Christ, right? Jesus had already existed for 5 years. You get what I'm saying, Anne?
Yeah.
I think everybody's glazed over.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Good.
But that you glazed
Mel's
over,
in the
yeah.
best position to agree with it.
Mm.
So who's in the best position? Anyway,
Mel.
the one thing what he's saying is that dating system's completely wrong. But what he said, because
Course it's
everybody
wrong.
reported wrong, exactly. But he said that Jesus is actually born 5 years before he's born, right, on the 5th on 5 BC, right? But he decided to continue with his dating system. So you got 404 BC, right? And 5 years before Christ is born on 5 years BC. So nothing changed, right? He actually published this. And also there was some debate over what season this all happened. Now, we'll talk about that. He eventually came to an October date, right? But theologically, some people argued that it happened in the summer. Some people argued that it happened in the winter, but most people believed that creation happened in the autumn. Ussher further narrowed down the date by using the Jewish calendar to establish the first day of creation as falling on a Sunday near the autumnal equinox. The day of the week was a backwards calculation from the 6 days of creation, with God resting on the 7th, which in the Jewish calendar is Saturday. Hence, creation began on a Sunday. On the 7th day he rested. So therefore, that's a Saturday, and therefore it's a Sunday that the earth is created. So the astronomical tables that Ussher probably used was known as the Rudolphine tables of 1627. I know it well. Using them, he would have concluded that the equinox occurred on Tuesday, October the 25th, only 1 day earlier than the traditional day of its creation, on the 4th day of creation week. Wednesday, along with the sun, moon, and stars, Genesis 1:16. Modern equations place the autumnal equinox of 404 BC on a Sunday, so he was right, October the 23rd. So, guys, you now know that the Earth was created on a Sunday, right? And we've actually got a time of day that it actually happened as well, 12 o'clock. It's true. So with all this being said, here we go. Basically, as he wrote in his own book, in the beginning, God created heaven and the earth. Genesis 1:1. This beginning of time, according to our chronology, happened at the start of the evening preceding the 23rd day of October in the year of the Julian calendar. Ussher provides a slightly different time for lots of these things that are going on, right? But one of the things is it was 6 hours before midnight that the Earth was created at 6 p.m. That's what he eventually settled on. So the Earth was created at 6 p.m. Job done. So finally, what we're going to do, what's that? Yeah, go for it. Yeah, that's me.
Yes, but it, you know, it depends on the moon, the sun, and everything else. But, you know, if you go to West Wales, there's different stuff. And does it really matter when these dates are?
The point is, this is the point of what I think, right? It doesn't matter when the dates are, right?
Lovely.
The chronology matters. The one thing about Bishop Ussher, he's putting things into a chronology, right? And Del, this is a really important point.
Yes.
The one thing that I've been teaching is that dates don't matter, right?
Lovely, thank you.
Bishop Ussher, right? If you look at like I did last night, I really did a parody last night about Bishop Ussher's work, right? And the parody last night was look, you know, look at all this, and everyone was laughing and whatever. And then actually what I wanted to do was actually defend Bishop Ussher, but somebody actually did it for me. And what I wanted to say is that even though the dates that Bishop Ussher comes up with for the creation of the earth, right, he is actually saying that somewhere along the line you've got dinosaurs and stuff in the 6 days, and then modern day humans actually occur in the idea of Adam, which is in Genesis, and then you're talking about a flood over here, and we know about these floods, all these different things, and we talk about all these other things, the pharaohs and the coming out of Egypt and all these other things. These events actually did happen, right? Except Bishop Ussher shot himself in the foot by putting dates in there. But Del, he had to put dates in there because he had to please the creationists, and he had to please the person who was paying him, and it was Oliver Cromwell. Oliver Cromwell was paying his pay packet. And the weirdest thing, actually, the weirdest thing is that Oliver Cromwell ordered that Bishop Ussher be buried in London, in Westminster. This is how important Ussher was. Ussher had to put dates down. If he didn't, but he had to put dates down because this is what the creationists want. Now, the final bit of the story is, right? The final bit of the story is, and we've got to do a few of my usual accents, and then we're going to take a little bit of a break, and then we're going to do some Neolithic stuff. Okay, job done? That's okay. So here we go.
Lovely.
And by the way, the lecture that I'm giving now on Bishop Ussher took me yesterday 1 hour and 20 minutes. We've nearly done it. We've nearly done it in just under 40 minutes. So listen to this next bit. We're loving this because, and look at this, yeah. There you go. The first age of the world. However, now this is rather interesting. So somebody said the first thing. I'm digressing a little bit. I'm going into the next lecture, but I'm using a point from the next lecture now. When we had done this, I had indoctrinated people in this lecture for 1 hour and 20 minutes, right? When we got into the Neolithic lecture after the break, everyone had cooled off. and 5 of them said this is one of the most boring lectures we've ever heard, and the other 5 said we really loving this lecture. And afterwards we did the Neolithic period, and everything was vindicated. And the first thing that was said in the Neolithic lecture after, I think it was 9:10, and that went on till 10:10, right? We just did little bits from the Neolithic period to sort of get you back into it, because we're doing the Neolithic period all next week on Wednesday and Tuesday. And they said, well, if you're saying the Neolithic period began 8,000 years ago, right? Which is approximately 6,000 years BC, right? By this chronology, it didn't exist. And my answer is yes, it did. Because if you look at the writing there, the first age of the world, right? If you look at a 0 age of the world before this, as another world before all of this is created, right? You can actually start to see that if you read this chronology in that way, the chronology actually makes sense, not the dates.
Right.
See, this is right. And the other thing as well is, right, this is, I've actually gone completely away from this, right? But the next point I'm going to make is something that I didn't make on Tuesday, and I've just actually realized something, right? So let's just go back a bit, and actually, Del, this is going to be really exciting, because I'm going to do a reveal now that's just suddenly hit my heart, right? If you look at, say, for example, 4,004 years BC, which for us is over 6,000 years ago, right? But 4,004 years BC. If you look at that line there, everything that's happening in Genesis is actually happening in the end of the Neolithic period, Bronze Age, and the Iron Age, right? So in other words, Adam is living, for example, in the end of the Neolithic period, right? Coming into the Bronze Age, right? So if we look at that entire chronology happening from the end of the Neolithic Bronze Age onwards, all of that's accurate. I didn't actually say that, but even the dates might fit in, except people didn't live 930 years. I'm not a Bible basher, right? So Del, if we go back again, and I've got to read the rest of the lecture now. That's a massive reveal, right? That's a massive reveal. So in other words,
you don't have to, Carl, but
the 0 age of the world, right,
yes.
was before the first age of the world. So in other words, everything the clock has stopped. Now the other thing, Del, is that there's several people that stop the clock. So if you look at Mao, and you look at Pol Pot, who in 1976.
Oh, I like him.
Pol Pot. Yeah, we're not doing a lecture on Pol Pot. But year zero, he basically said, right, everything starts again, year 0, right? So if you look at 404 BC, that's year 0. But stuff happened before that. The Third Reich, 1935, 1st of July 1935, that was year 0 for the Third Reich, right? Stalin also had a year 0, right? All these dictators have got a year 0. So in other words, we're not discounting that Germany existed before 1935, but for the Nazi Party and the Third Reich, Germany starting again, right? And this is the same with Pol Pot. This is the same all over. Maybe this is what happened in Rwanda in 1997, right? It's this idea of year 0. It is still with us today. So this chronology is massively relevant, relevant. We're gonna keep this here, and I know that Henry is gonna love this, but I've got to do my last bit for the lecture, and then we're gonna take a tiny little break, because Meg W.
How long is the break, Carl?
It's basically a minute. So if order something now, shout to the missus, because we wanna crack on, because
I need the laugh.
All right then. Well, okay, if you need the laugh, right?
Did you say
It's year 0.
Good night.
No, he's gone to the toilet, you stupid woman.
I need the laugh on.
Oh, the laugh. Oh, go then.
I'm gonna have to.
Right, go, Del. Go and use the toilet,
back.
and you're gonna have to listen to me in the background.
It's down the
Right.
garden.
Oh dear. Oh dear me.
My God, there's 8
Did you draw
people
this
watching
yourself?
online. I don't know
I
what the
think I
Shut up! And just let me get on with the lecture, please. Right, okay. Right, here we go. Right, okay. Right, crack on. Usher's
on, come
chronology today. You could set up, Henry. By the middle of the 1800s, so we're talking about 1860 odd, right? In the United States, and then obviously in the Confederate States in America and in Great Britain and in Germany and in France and in Upper Boat, right? Usher's chronology came under increasing attack from supporters of uniformitarianism, who argued that Usher's young Earth was incompatible with the increasingly accepted view of an Earth much more ancient Usher. But then again, it doesn't take much to work out that if you added another world before Usher, then everything works out, including the dinosaurs. It became generally accepted that the Earth was tens, perhaps even hundreds of millions of years old. Usher's ideas fell into disrepute among theologians as well. In 1819, the Princeton professor William Henry Green wrote a highly influential article in Bibliothèque Sacrée entitled Primeval Chronology, in which he strongly criticized Usher. He concluded, so this American is actually Irish. Top the world here, sir. We conclude the scriptures furnish no data for a chronological computation prior to the life of Abraham. Shut up, you. And that the Mosaic records do not fix and were not intended to fix the precise date either of the flood or of the creation of the world. And fiddly dee. How was that? Good.
4.
All right, then. Shut up. It wasn't an Irish accent at all. I was hoodwinking you.
Irish American.
Yeah, thanks for that.
It drifted and got sunk in the middle of the Atlantic.
Exactly. So in other words, this is what he felt. He felt that the Mosaic records do not fix, were not intended to fix the precise date either of the flood or of the creation of the world. And that's an interesting thing, because this is one thing that we're thinking about today. But one thing he's missing is that the chronology was right. Now, this is the thing. I'm arguing not that Bishop Usher was right in his dates. I'm arguing that the idea of order is right. Now, that's really important. That's really important for me. The similarly conservative theologian Warfield reached the same conclusion in On the Antiquity and Unity of the Human Race, commenting that it is precarious in the highest degree to draw chronological inferences from genealogical tables. That's what he said. Archbishop Usher's chronology has in recent years been subject to artistic criticism from people from Cardiff, including in the play Inherit the Winds and the fantasy novel Good Omens, which alleges that it is inaccurate by almost a quarter of an hour. Now this next viewpoint is massive, right? And basically all that you've listened to now, this next person puts in Usher, he basically balances the critics of Usher. He balances what I'm saying, what you're thinking, what it is today, what it was in 1840, and all these other things, right? This next guy, Stephen Jay Gould, while totally disagreeing with Usher's chronology, nevertheless wrote the following. So he's a rather posh guy from Birmingham. No, he's not. I shall be defending Usher's chronology as an honourable effort for his time and arguing that our usual ridicule only records a lamentable small-mindedness based on mistaken use of present criteria to judge a distant and different past. Usher represented the best of scholarship in his time. He was part of a substantial research tradition, a large community of intellectuals working toward a common goal under an accepted methodology. I shall rest my case.
Yeah.
Thank you. So that's basically Bishop Usher, right? And this is what we're going to do in a moment also. What I'm going, my little break is going to be, I'm going to use Dell's Lav, and I'm also going to put some funny tablets in my drink, and we're going to crack on with the Neolithic. But there he is, James Ussher, of Armagh Island. And I'm loving this. I'm loving this because this is when this sort of stuff actually becomes a bit of a ridicule. Right, here we go. Here we go. The date of birth and the age. It says there. It says that here we go. That Cain was born about 1:29 a.m. perhaps. And it basically says that Adam talked to Seth at 1:30 a.m. right? And unfortunately, this is when it gets a bit silly. And this is a rather interesting thing, right? And you'll like this, right? In the Bible, it says that women created marriage. So it's women's fault that we've got marriage.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
It is.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, well, the thing is when
she must have said, right. Well, you know.
Is that what she said? She said,
You've got to look after me now. We both
yeah,
know,
so you
both
got to
sing,
marry me.
and you've got to
Well,
look after me.
You know, Goff was a billionaire before he got married. He ended up with nothing. You know, this is what women do. They take everything.
That's absolutely true.
It's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. The problem is the reason why Henry's not getting a divorce is because he owns an island off the coast of Martinique, and he's afraid that his missus
At least two.
will.
You got one each.
Oh, right. Oh, well.
Yeah, but the problem is if you divorce your missus, she'll end up with yours as well.
Oh.
I'm
Right.
moving
So
it.
what we're going to do? Oh,
Just
by
like the
the way,
Chinese.
I think you've got to end this, haven't you?
no, we've ended it. It's ended.
But,
It's
but
ended.
what I wanted to say was
Oh,
that
for God's sake! I want my funny tablets. Right, carry on.
only that I always
What?
thought that it was a sort of allegory of, you know, that the Bible was like just telling the story of, you know, civilized man, you know, the man with the
With the golden
right and the
gun.
left side of the brains operating in sync, you know, and
By the way, everyone else is listening to you, but I'm not. So keep going. I'm just going to go.
so I don't think there's anything wrong in thinking that, you know, that our history, the history of man really started around the Neolithic time. I don't think we're missing much.
No, we're not. We're on to the Neolithic now. Anyway, I just got to get.
I don't think we're missing much before that. I mean, we've tried to find, you know, we have tried to find civilizations and things, but then, you know,
They're all in Barry.
pardon?
They're in Barry.
They're in Barry. Yeah. Oh, but anyway, we do find civilizations that are before, you know, because of course the Neolithic in our country was different to other countries, and the ice ages were different and that sort of thing. So I suppose Neolithic is like a bottom line, really, or a top line.
I just had an epiphany.
Hmm?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, you know.
Okay. Right.
Right. Okay.
Right. Are we ready?
Yeah.
Good. So one thing that dominates. We're into the Neolithic period now, so we're sort of going to make sense of the whole world. You know, that's the way we do it. Right. One thing that we've done over the past few months is that we've sort of from Christmas time we've sort of done our barrow diggers, and we'll be on our 4th lecture of the Barrow Diggers in about 2 weeks. And what we've done, we've looked at how we've perceived the reconstructed archaeological past. So that's what we've been looking at. And what I want to do now is get back to the content of the Neolithic period. And by doing so, we've got to try and harry the problems that are apparent with the Neolithic period. And what the problems that are apparent with the Neolithic period is that it's too obsessed with big monuments like Avebury, like Stonehenge, like Maes Howe, like Newgrange, even with the likes of Tinkerswood Burial Chamber down the road. What we've got to do is we've got to try and understand the Neolithic period, which is a lot more than those big things, which is actually about the people living and the people having a deep sense of survival. So one thing that we clearly know about the Neolithic period is it's becoming increasingly evident that there is lots of evidence out there of Neolithic settlement. We have done in our lectures in regards to the Mesolithic period, finding evidence of Mesolithic buildings that purely prove that people lived not in a sense of hunter-gatherer, but a sedentary, fixed way of life in certain areas where we looked at Boulder Cliff off the Isle of Wight, and we looked at off the Merseyside coast. We looked at the site of Hoyk. We looked at Star Car. We looked at a site near Amesbury. We looked at all these different sites. So this is what we saw in the Mesolithic period. One thing that we see in the Neolithic period is this sort of evolution of people living in set localities. Now, a site that I'm definitely going to bring to us is this one. It's a site that I've not really explored before. It's actually off on the Hebridean island of North Uist, and it's an amazing site because it's a Neolithic settlement. One problem that we do see in archaeology is archaeologists have really been obsessed with the big stuff. In fact, they've been mainly male archaeologists who are obsessed with male things like Stonehenge, and obsessed with male things like the Minotaur monument or Newgrange, and reconstructing things that look massive. And lots of women archaeologists come into the field and say, actually, what we need to do, we need to actually look real, and we need to start looking at the settlements. So one of the big things over the recent decades is that we've actually started really looking at settlements, such as this one. This is the most impressive Neolithic site, and it's a very impressive Neolithic site. It's fairly early. It's over six. It's in the region of over 6,000 years ago plus, probably older than that actually. But this site itself, Loch Olbat in North Uist, possesses an unusual situation on a small islet. But we're saying that an unusual situation on a small islet in a shallow loch, being joined to the loch edge by a timber and stone causeway. Now, immediately when we look at this site in the future, we see the site being a site that's made out of both stone and timber, which is a bit of a revolution. And why is that a bit of a revolution? Because in places, for example, Trellistan, which is actually in Wales, you don't see much other than post holes, and you don't see much other than pits. These buildings, Fengate, Halden, Buxton, are mainly made out of timber. But they're made out of timber because timber's the choice of any person who's wanting to build a house. When you go to somewhere like Stark, Skara Brae, they're forced to build their houses out of stone within a large mound of shell. If you would have said to the people on Orkney, right, here's a load of timber, they would have built their structures in timber. There's no doubt about it. Timber is the easiest building material. And you can argue that it's not, but it is. It's the easiest way to build is timber. I can remember over a year and a bit ago, I had a load of wood delivered. I managed to put up a building in a day. I could not have done that with sand and cement. I know as somebody who's worked in the building industry, as a builder's labourer, that if you're going to build a wall, you've got to allow the cement to dry for a couple of days, and then you get to another layer. You don't need to do that with wood, right? But in absence of evidence, the reason why they built in stone was because there was a lack of trees. That's why they're building in stone. That you don't need somebody to tell you there weren't trees around, right? They built out of stone because they had no choice. But these people building here did have a choice, and also these people building here out of stone and timber also had a choice. They just thought, there's a little bit less timber, so we're going to build these houses in stone. But then again, they also use timber at the same time. So there's different ways of looking at how the Neolithic's evolving. One of the things about the Neolithic period, and this is going to sound bizarre, it's a soft period. Right, what do I mean by that? Well, if you look at, for example, Silbury Hill, it's practically all made of earth. If you look at the mounds associated with lots of these barrows, they're earth, right? If you look at the Cursus monuments, it's just earth. If you look at the bank barrow monuments, it's just earth. It's only later in the Neolithic period that they start to build things like Stonehenge and Avebury and Maes Howe, and they start to build out of stone. Initially, it's a soft period, like big ditches, henges, and all the rest of it. Wood henge, so on. Soft period, right? It's a period of softness. Stone is something that seems to come along as a material that takes longer to build out of. However, when you look at somewhere like Stonehenge, you actually start to see that Stonehenge is constructed by somebody who was a carpenter. Tongue and groove, mortise and tenon joints associated with the capstones and the uprights. All that said, this is a period of great transition, great evolution, great changes in use and command of materials. Remember, these people are seeing Britain as a great sort of opportunity. These people had no other choice than living in Britain. So they had to make do of the landscape around them. This site that we will be looking at in the future, an excavated site, one thing that this does tell us is that people lived here for an incredible long period of time. In fact, when they excavated this site, it purely shows us that there are 12 separate phases of occupation recognized by the archaeological excavators, each associated with traces of rectangular and oval buildings. That's rather interesting, that we've got rectangular and also we've got oval buildings. I tell you what, right, building a circular building, which has nearly been the end of me, right, has been one of the most difficult projects I've ever taken on. A building that's 6 meters in diameter, having to build the walls, a raised floor on stilts, getting all the building material in, getting the roof on, all the rest of it. Chuck me a building on stilts that's square anytime. It's easy. Building a structure, square, rectangular, is easy compared to a circular building. And a rather interesting thing is that these, in the Neolithic period, what we do see is people actually building rectangular and square buildings, rather than the circular buildings that we see in the predominantly in the Iron Age, which for me is like crackers. Why would you build circular buildings when it's easier to build square buildings? But there must have been a reason for that. But we don't need to talk about that today. So this and hugely, hugely what we do see is the hallmark of the Neolithic period. So what we have said over the past few months when we've been looking at the Neolithic, we've gone to places like the Ring of Brodgar, we've mentioned Stonehenge and Avebury, we've mentioned sites in Ireland, Cornwall, Scotland, Wales, all over the place. And one of the type sites for the Neolithic period isn't this site, which we'll come on to, and again, this sort of causeway, timber, and all the rest of it, love it, right? Oh, and people get very anal. Sorry to use that word, very anal. It's people seem to get very obsessed with they built a causeway because they needed to defend it. Who are they going to defend it from? Pixies? Oh yeah, I forgot. It's in Scotland. They're going to sort of defend it against the fairy folk, right? There were so few people in Scotland at that time that there's another reason why it's on an island.
Is that a crannog? Or
No, it's not. Well,
what they call?
Crannog is technically a completely artificial island, but however, Crannogs are usually created on some kind of rise in the water, which is lapping, right? So you're looking out there and say, oh, it's lapping on a lump or something. So what you do, you raise up the level. That's a crannog. This is principally a little island off the coast.
Okay.
But actually near when I say the coast, off the loch side.
Yeah.
But the type site is that, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be really honest, and I've said this before. I've been dreading doing the Neolithic period, because when I set out to do the archaeological periods again, I thought, right, Paleolithic's going to be really difficult. I loved it. Mesolithic's going to be really difficult. I loved it. Neolithic, oh my God, what am I going to do? Because there's just so many places to look at. But what I've done, I've given us a time over the past few weeks to evolve that sort of idea, get us into it, and sort of see the pitfalls and all the rest of it with the Neolithic period. And now we're sort of into it really, really proper, with this sort of new year and so on. So this site itself is a site known as Skara Brae. Now, I have been to Skara Brae many times, and I can I can tell you about every single orgasm that I've had with Skara Brae. It's absolutely orgasmic. I love the site, but Skara Brae is a site that is only part of it with us today, and I will make a heads up statement that if there was lots of wood on Orkney, Skara Brae would never have been found, except the buildings that they would have built in timber at Skara Brae would have actually been very similar to the buildings that we're looking at today, except this is made out of stone and it survived. So that really, really important point there, and that really, really important point to be made. So if we give you a little bit of information about Skara Brae dates to approximately, some dates vary. So I'm going to put it roughly somewhere in the region of 5,500 years ago. The dates vary because we know at Skara Brae there was an earlier site at Skara Brae before the later site, which is very typical with lots of Neolithic sites. What we see with lots of Neolithic sites is that there was always something there, and it developed and developed, and it came into what it eventually become. So if you think of the analogy about Stonehenge, so Stonehenge started at least 6,000 years ago. That's Stonehenge at least 6,000 years ago, and it's only tossing itself into the final avenue of presentation about 4,000 years ago into sort of the Bronze Age. So what we're seeing is lots of these sites are progressive and sort of from a mound of sort of shells and stuff to developing into this type of site. So if I read out directly what's here, sedentary way of life focused around small village scale settlements, a practice radically different from that elsewhere in the British Isles. This was a statement made by our friend Joshua Pollard a few years ago. That sort of changed in its projection. And if I tried to do the Nessa Brodgar settlement with you, it's going to be based on information which will change by the summer. by my university, Highlands and Islands, because they're always excavating there. So all this stuff that we know about the Neolithic period constantly changing. But this building itself, these buildings themselves, the individual rooms that you can actually see, these are actually, in between these, there are little sort of passageways and corridors, little tiny streets. And that building on the left-hand side there is some kind of workshop. So it's proper civilization, proper real civilization. And it's the best preserved and most famous, found in a storm in 1850. And lots of things that they don't tell you is that in 1850, part of the village was washed out into the sea. So in 1850, there's a massive storm, and it removed a part of the site, and also removed lots of the sand above it. People actually thought it was a place of the little people, and they might be right in a way, because this is a little settlement with tight little corridors and passageways. Now, I've made an advantageous mistake when I've been building stuff in West Wales. I started building everything with storm doors, right? So if there was a storm, right, you had a 1.5 meter high doorway, which was 1 meter wide, storm door, and everything, and we haven't needed it, right? Because I was thinking of somebody living on Orkney, which would be very, very different than weather conditions today. Things were very harsh on Orkney back then. But the settlement comprises, hence why you got small doorways, small corridors and stuff. Or is that completely wrong? Maybe that's the way they actually built, to sort of restrict the amount of material they're actually using. So this settlement does comprise of irregular arrangement, sort of buildings and different corridors and alleyways. The walls of many buildings still stand to the original height, and the interiors are equipped with hearths and remarkable stone-built furniture. So again, not showing you any of that today, simply because we've got a lecture coming up with that coming up in the future. So we actually do find a similar site to this on the island of Westray. No, Papa Westray, not the island. Papa Westray is a different island. Papa Westray. Papa Westray is very similar to this. It's sort of way out there in Orkney. You never ever get to it unless you can bung somebody a bit of money, and they'll take you out there in a boat or they're plane. But there's another site like this. It's not the only one. But what we do find is that some of these very early, very well-preserved settlements are to be found within the Orkney landscape. For example, even on the little island of Rouse, which I've also been to, there's another site near the Ring of Brodgod called Barner House, which is very similar to this. However, that we do believe that used a lot of timber. One striking feature of all these settlements is a marked similarity in the spatial organization of both houses and contemporary tombs or chambers and henge monuments, which even extends to the alignment of hearths within the houses following that of tomb entrances. So what we're talking about is that this civilization, the Neolithic people, linked in their lives with what was around them. So in other words, and then I'm going to come back to modern times. So these people had a living landscape, a Lebensraum. They had a landscape of the ancestors, which would just be ancestors were able to sort of go out. So that's your bank barrows, your sort of cursus monuments, your avenues, Silbury Hill and Marlborough Mound and so on. Those are the landscapes of the ancestors, and your souterrains underground and what have you. And then you've the next category. The next category is the burial landscape, where you've got the chambers, the causewayed enclosures, the eventual chambers that become burial chambers. You've got sky burial sites, so the landscape of sort of the dead. So ancestors, living, Lebensraum, the living, your living space. So you've got the settlements, and you've got the landscape, the ploughed fields, the Lebensraum, and then you've got the landscape of the ancestors, which we've already explained. You've got the landscape of, for example, the landscape of the dead. So that's the third category. And then you've got the landscape of places you didn't go to, the primeval landscape, the woodlands, natural woodlands, like Berriedale Wood, which is one of the only primeval landscapes left in the whole of Britain, which is on the island of Hoy. So you've got sort of 4 differentiated landscapes. What I usually do is define the living area with the living space labourers around. But that's, if you want to be pedantic, there's 5 sort of definitions of the Neolithic landscape. But one thing about this landscape, one thing about the people within this landscape and the spatial organization is that these people had very interesting everyday routines, a very interesting everyday ritual, sense of separation, mutual spheres of activity, mutual respect, in all mundane and everyday sort of senses of values and beliefs and so on. So what we're trying to say is that there's no evidence of warfare or killing or raping or having lack of respect for people. These people lived and they breathed. And how dare modern day society say that we are civilized when we're still doing the terrible things in the world that we do? These people were far more advanced and civilized than we are today, because they had peace and they were able to live and breathe. And that's a really, really good point. And that sort of leads me on to the sort of one of the things that we have mentioned in regards to the Neolithic period, is that, you know, we've mentioned that sort of, you know, one of a period of mutual sort of respect. There's no idea of centralization that we actually start to see in the Bronze Age and the Iron Age. There's no sense of rigid hierarchy. We've got these big monuments, but it's quite possible a lot of these big monuments can be built by small sort of groups and individuals over long lengths and periods of time. So I'm just going to chuck it out there. Maybe Stonehenge was built by a very small community over a long period of time. And, you know, 2,000 years to build Stonehenge, you know, it's easy. You know, you just do a bit every now and then. It's a bit like you start off with a shed in the garden and then you build a house, but you've done it over 20 years. It's possible to do Stonehenge over, it's possible, and this is going to sound absolute nuts, right? But go with me on this one. It's possible to create Stonehenge. One family could create Stonehenge by itself over 2,000 years. Think about it. It's doable. So the one thing that we mention a lot is this sort of we mention flints and stuff, but we also see that massively in the Neolithic period. It's something that we need to spend a lot of time on. Is their pottery. So it says early Neolithic bowls. When it says early Neolithic bowls, we're talking about 6,000 years ago. Before that, we've got bigger, massive containers with really thick walls on them, mainly just clay, right? Which you create this thing in a corner of a room, and it's just made of clay and a big container. And eventually, as it gets damp, it collapses and falls apart. We've all made bowls out of clay in the garden, and then we've put them in the oven at 200 degrees C, and it's all right. And then we put them back in the garden. They go back to clay. Well, in many ways, people thought they had sort of challenged these sort of clay thing and been able to create sort of large pottery and so on that we do sort of in evidence start to see in Orkney and other places over 6,000 years ago. But as 6,000 years ago comes on, we start to see little bowls like this, round-based bowls, and then we start to get flat-based bowls. And this is something of the material culture of this wonderful. One of the real hallmarks of the Neolithic period is not just its big monuments. It's not the settlements, because they happened in the Mesolithic period. We didn't really have big monuments in the Mesolithic period, so that's the one big hallmark of the Neolithic. But it's this pottery that they're able to fire at high temperature, and this is one of the big sort of hallmarks that defines this period in many ways from the Mesolithic period. So I can't deny that. It's a very, very important point as we see moving from using primarily wood and skin and bone and antler, now starting to use pottery as well as everything else that they're actually using within their marquetry of material culture. So I wanted to share one other image that sort of marks out. But before we look at that other image, what I'd like to do is pepper the last image, which will be that, with an image that we passed by a little while ago. And this little thing that passes by a little while ago, and these buildings, we've got about 200 recognizable Neolithic settlement sites in Britain now. And these sites do indicate buildings that were made of timber, some made of stone, and the one at Halden made of stone and timber. But in absence of evidence, we would not be wrong in stating that a big hole in the ground full of bones, bits of broken pottery, bits of burnt crap, bits of human and animal feces indicates that means that there's a settlement nearby. If you can't find the settlement nearby, it did exist. In absence of evidence, the midden shows you that people have lived within that landscape for a very long period of time. When we went to the island of Sanday, and a site known as Pool on the island of Sanday, eroding from the cliffside was this midden, which was actually full of, thousands of years of occupation. The lowest layer was frigging Mesolithic, for God's sake. And then we had Neolithic stuff, and you could see it all. And then you saw a spinal bone of a child in the profile. It was great. I couldn't touch any of this stuff because it was left for the archaeologists of Sanday to record and to survey. And it basically told us that there was a big settlement nearby. It probably eroded into the sea, and that was again in absence of evidence. I don't know if you remember when we did the Mesolithic period, what we said, that in a field you might find bits of Mesolithic flint, and you might find bits of baked clay, but you don't find a settlement. And you're thinking, well, where is a settlement? And we come up with the idea maybe buildings were raised off the ground on stilts, or maybe people lived in crooks in trees, a bit like Ewoks, right? May sound funny and silly, right? But people have always lived in trees, right? Anne's still got her little sort of house in the garden that she goes up and spies on birds and stuff, tree house. So in other words, but anyway, the point is that, in absence of evidence, we can see that people lived within a landscape permanently, sedentary lifestyle, bit of agriculture, right? They lived permanently. Somebody, I'll give you another thing, another example of in absence of evidence, looking for the inferred evidence. Now, this is going to sound a bit odd, right? I eat bananas, right? And I give Baldric, my turkey, banana skin, right? So if, say, for example, you looked at Baldric's droppings, you will see that there's a high value of potassium in his droppings, which would indicate that he's eating something that's high in potassium, which is bananas, right? So he's eating the peel. So that must mean that a human being is eating the rest of the soft tissue. In absence of evidence, I eat bananas, and you can tell that from my Baldric's droppings. So in absence of evidence, this is a massive thing with modern day archaeology. So not finally, but nearly coming to the end now, but this has been a nice little lecture in towards the end, but here we go. So we got over 200 sort of settlements across Britain. And that building on the left at Buxton is 12 meters in length. I kid you not. 12 meters in length, Neolithic building. And I tell you what, my building that I've got here is 6.5 meters, and that's pretty sizable. 12 meters in length. But I couldn't have done that as a round building. You have to do it as a rectangular building. Love it. We've got simple halves in there. So the simple halves are recognized as half there, half there. The little grey sort of little things there, more halves there in the center of those buildings. That's where we're seeing halves. And what we see is we do see groups of buildings, we see individual buildings, and maybe you could probably get 2 families into that building 12 meters long. You really could. And we've got Fengate, which is Peterborough, in East Anglia, and you've got Halden, Devon. So those are 2 different sites. So the one at Fengate, you've got slot ditches around the outside. So basically, you would dig a ditch, and between those 2 posts, those 2 little black things above the word Fengate, right? You would sort of put panels, split bits of timber, and those 2 would actually. You can see how quick you could probably erect a building like this in a day. I know you could because I've done it, and that's if you've got the material lying around. If you're going to be waiting for people to cut down trees, you're going to be spending weeks. But so Halden as well, they've decided to use both stone and timber. And interesting enough, the hearth is over in the corner there. Interesting, like it. So these people are actually sort of developing the sort of idea of not mobile, but moving into places permanently, which we've actually seen in lots of the Mesolithic evidence as well. But interesting enough, that one at Trelliston, those buildings are just under 5 meters in diameter. And the author said, the small structures. Well, no, they're not, 4.5 meters, 5 meters. Trelliston, possibly saying that buildings like that at Trelliston might have been, Trelliston sort of high up in Powys, and you're thinking, well, it might be a bit cold there in the winter months. Maybe those buildings are for shepherds watching animals, or maybe they actually live there. There's all these assumptions and ideas about what's going on to be made or not to be made. Finally, when you think about this, it's all about looking at the staining of the ground, trying to differentiate where these slit ditches were, and trying to sort of section post holes. Some settlements, such as that at Fengate, those short residences of single households, but then again, were they that short? We don't really know. We're thinking there's another site which is a place known as Broom Heath in Norfolk. We're starting to see sort of expanded settlements, and again, seeing flint scatters and other evidence in absence of evidence as sort of middens and so on. Even though we can't find the buildings, we actually know the people lived there probably permanently, or they moved around. In the Neolithic period, a bit like today, a bit like it was in the Mesolithic period, transitional. Some people lived in places at a set period, other people moved around the countryside. So what I'd like to do now, it's now 8:45 where I wanted to be, and before we actually get onto the last little nugget, and we can't sort of introduce next week, because next week we're looking at a really nice Neolithic site, just an individual site within a landscape. So very important. So if we sort of go here, next week, what we will be doing is we will get straight down to the undies, and we'll run straight into the lecture, because we're no longer doing the 6 o'clock lecture. It's just 7:15 straight into the undies, and we're running. So I'm sure Goff will be happy with that. So this site is a site known as Grimes Graves. This is again in East Anglia. It's Norfolk, Grimes Graves, and this site itself is a site that I've been to. It's a fascinating site. It's the site of a Neolithic quarried landscape. So like these other sites, right? Not this one, forget that one. Like this site and like this site, all of this evidence is sort of below ground surface level. That's not, but it's below ground surface level, right? Very different from, for example, the megalithic sites of Stonehenge and Avebury and so on. But Grimes Graves is not much different from, for example, these sites, because it's below the surface. But the difference is the landscape's pockmarked, a bit like a First World War battlefield, no man's land. And this is a massively important site where we're seeing flint in the tens of thousands of tons processed and exported all the way across Britain to various communities. There was such a trade in this that these quarries were actually used for hundreds of years, meaning something else, my friends, that the Neolithic was a fairly peaceable period, that people could go around with their wares and sell them. Probably more peaceful than times are today. And on that note, that's the end of my Bishop Ussher lecture today and the end of my Neolithic today. Be very pleased to see you next week. We know what's going on next week, and what we're going to do is we're going to see if there are any questions. And if I can try and find where I am. Having some technical difficulties at this minute, and what we're going to do is we're going to go back to Zoom, and we're going to stop. We're going to find out if there are any questions. And somebody's put some stuff in the chat box.
Yes.
Right. Oh, here we go. We got lots of stuff.
Del did. Yeah, he was asking about a site of costs.
Right. Okay. Here we go. Right. Let's just quickly do this. Right. Let's before we Dell stuff. I am back, Anne. Okay. You can buy the Book of Asher on Amazon. Fair enough. Right. Rather than wood, stone, then wood. Right. Then the settlements up towards Regos, top of the Rhondda, be like that. Well, obviously, I think you're talking about the Mahdi's wooden totems that they've actually found. Or you're talking about Regos, as in blind Cumdda, and yeah, that site, which is actually in my book, Romans in South Wales. No, very different from that. Oh, but I think, yeah, but obviously more timber being used in the Neolithic period than stone in later periods. Right. Tidy, nice labs when driving towards M4. What the hell has that got to do with anything? Right. Okay, right. That's right. So, right, Henri, anything you'd like to say, my French friend?
No, it was a game of two halves.
What did you say?
It's a game of two halves.
A game of two halves.
The question is, right, the question is, in which half did Henry play?
Yeah.
I think
he's
Ange, shut up. You've got verbal diarrhea tonight. Henry, what else would you like to say?
No, I found it quite. I did find it very interesting, and actually how people interpreted things and then recorded it, and everyone sat around for hundreds of years saying, "Oh, that's all correct," and then all of a sudden, hang on, we haven't quite got the game right.
Exactly. It's a bit like the Conservative government at this point. Yeah, you're very right there, Henry. You're very, very right. So anyway, thanks for that, Henry. So if you haven't got anything else to say, then
no, that's fine.
Carl,
what we're going to do, right, Del, talk to us, babe.
Yes, please. I know I haven't been here for a while, but thank you. Thanks for these sessions, and I enjoyed today.
Good. I'm glad you've enjoyed today. And Del, I will say this, that we've decided that we're going to keep the Wednesday evening for you guys, because my Tuesday evening, there's 11 people on my Tuesday evening, and you can obviously always dabble into that, but But
Yeah,
yeah, we will keep Wednesday going. And the reason,
Yeah.
a key reason why we've dropped the lecture before this at 6 o'clock is that it usually used up a lot of my energy. So now we're going to be running straight from our undies.
oh, that's lovely, because I get confused.
Don't worry, I'll get confused as well, particularly when Anne's in the lecture.
Oh yes, definitely.
Anyway, anything else you'd like to say, Del, before we go on to Anne?
Yes, on the weekend, I'll be old. I'll be 60.
Oh, you're
Well,
the youngest one we've got.
well. The thing is, you see,
Oh,
Goff
what's
is
wrong with that?
59, so he'll be reaching his 60th soon as well.
But I'm hoping to meet up with Anne.
Good.
Maybe Glenys and
I have to tell
whoever.
you, and
Guys, do this
Oh.
at the end of the lecture, right?
The
Okay.
Bridge End group. Right,
Anything-
okay, I'm going to switch off now.
No,
because...
Del, don't switch off. Listen to what everybody else has got to say a minute. Stay there.
Lovely.
Stay there,
Thank
Del.
you.
Don't.
Yeah, thank you.
Happy birthday.
Del, it's been a pleasure, but don't go yet, Del, okay? Just stay there. So,
Why?
you to go yet, Del. So,
No,
who
no.
else have we got? Right. Richard, what would you like to say, darling?
Not a lot. Really interesting.
Good.
Much
I'm
more
glad you
into
liked
the
it.
Neolithic than the timelines and everything. So,
It's all about perception, my friend.
yeah.
Well, to me, that's where.
Hang on a minute. We haven't finished. Is there anything else you want to say, Rich?
No, let Anne
Right.
have a go.
Okay, let Anne have a say. Anne, can you explain why you've got a milk thing behind you?
I went to Grimes' grave with you.
Yeah, but we don't talk about that because we
And
had
it
some
was-
shenanigans.
It was very deep. It was very deep. Oh my God. Yeah. I wouldn't go down actually. I refused to go down the ladder.
I
It
always-
is like a war scene, above. It's like, Hillary. Well, no, it's like
I always go down with women.
Bet you do.
And anything else you want to say before we ask off?
Well, for me, in my little mind now, I can just say the world started at Neolithic, and that suits me really. Not the world, but man, man
Yeah,
as he, became,
Yes.
and then from then on, it's like.
So in other words, I see what you mean. So in other words, Bishop Ussher's chronology did actually start sort of end in the Neolithic Bronze Age in the Middle East, and that's fine. I can go with that.
Yeah.
I can go with that. It's a bit like people in Barry. We're still a bit backwards, but eventually we will evolve. Anything else, Anne, you want to say before I go to golf?
No, thank you. It's interesting,
And
combination.
Del, before you go, Del, it's an absolute pleasure having you there. But Goff, what would you like to say?
I've got no questions, but I like the lecture and I like the way you split it in half. Very interesting, because I didn't know anything about the Bishop Ussher.
No.
And now I do. So thank you very much.
Yes.
Massively influential.
Because there's a Catholic
Nice to
college.
meet
There's a Catholic college called ussher in Liverpool area, and I ran into the back of a priest who came from the college.
Oh, flipping it.
I had to exchange my insurance with him.
And okay, that's fine. We don't right. Good.
Oh, that sounds awful.
Okay, right, guys. Right. So what I'm going to
car.
say is, hang on, Del and
What?
Anne stay on at the end. Del and Anne stay on at the end because I know you two want to chat. But Goff, is there anything else you want to say, Richard? You want to say, or Henry, you want to say before we go?
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Right, so next week we're starting at 7:15. We'll see you all next week. I really appreciate you joining us. So Del and Anne stay on, but if nobody else has got anything else to say, I'm going to say goodnight to Henri, our French friend.
Hi, everybody. Thank you.
And Richard. And
Thank you,
I'll see you all next
Carl.
week.
Carl,
Take care. See you Wednesday.
Thank you, Carl.
What's time?
Take care. Thank you. My
Wednesday
pleasure.
morning.
What's that doing
Take care.
now at time?
Take
Carl?
care.
Right.
Thanks, Richard.
Carl,
Anne,
what time
what
Wednesday
do you want
morning?
to
Oh, hang
talk to
on.
me about?
Dell and Anne, stay there a minute. Richard, we'll do Anne and Richard Wednesday, 11 o'clock next week.
11.
Okay.
Okie dokie.
Take
Okay.
care. Anyway, so thank you, Richard. Oh, Richard's gone. Right, so who's left? Oh, Henri. Hang on a minute. Henri wants to go to your do as well. So Dell, Henry,
he?
and Anne.
No, I'm
Oh,
not
He's
here.
welcome. He's welcome.
Breakfast at
What
the
do you mean he's not there?
high
He's
tide.
gone. He's
Well,
not there.
Anne,
Henry, they want you to meet Glenys again. Go on, talk.
No, Glenda can't go. I did ask her.
Right.
It's a bit early for me.
yeah, because
If
it's
not, what
Saturday
time are you
morning,
going? What time?
and I'm going into the sea.
What time?
What the fuck?
Well, don't worry. I'll be watching him because I'm on watch duty.
Are
Ah,
you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Didn't
but
say.
it might be
Corny
tricky.
Beach.
It might be tricky to see it. You have to
Yes.
swim to St. Donat's Bay.
Is that Coney
Oh, I
Beach?
can't go that far.
Coney Beach?
St.
Corny
Donat's Bay.
Beach. By the high tide,
What time?
and it's about 10 o'clock.
Oh, right.
Breakfast.
Yeah.
You don't have to go in the sea,
No.
but I will be,
Oh yes.
because
You
I do
will.
that anyway,
Yeah.
right? So,
This is a good
Love-
idea.
yes.
Henry's loving this.
Yeah, just a quick
Yes.
one. I won't be here
Hang
next week.
on. Henry wants to say something. Henry,
Oh,
go and
you
talk to
won't
me
be
before
here
you.
next week.
I'll
Hang
be
on.
60 on Saturday.
Hang on. Dell and Anne, let Henry say something a minute. Henry,
I
talk
won't
to
be
us.
here. I won't be here next week.
Okay, Henry. Well, we'll see you the following week.
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
Good.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah.
So Henry, are you leaving us now tonight?
Yeah, I'm off. Enjoy.
Thank you, Henry.
Lovely.
It's been a
Thank
pleasure
you.
to see you.
Bye.
Thank you, Henry. Cheers,
Bye.
lovely.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Word in Edgeways. See you, Henry.
Yeah.
Are you?
Bye.
Are you all right? Are you all right, Carl?
Well, I'm just listening to you two.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
he's
If
very
you want to come
tired.
on Saturday morning, it's basically Jane has sorted out some sort of thing, because I said
You didn't want to celebrate.
I didn't want to celebrate my 60th birthday. And what
No.
did she do? Organise.
Oh, well.
There's
Well,
about 80 people coming.
80?
80.
oh, well,
My
you
God.
obviously,
All I wanted to do was
Fucking
go
people.
for a dip with my lads and dads group,
yeah,
come back home,
yeah.
you know. But
Oh,
there's
well,
around 80 people coming.
And
your
smoke
lads
some
and
crack.
dads want to give you a breakfast.
Oh, yes.
They'll have a cup of tea with you.
Yeah, but
probably.
that would have been nice.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
But there's loads of people.
oh,
And when she told me, it was a case of, well, I wasn't supposed to know, but I found out.
all right. Well,
And case of flipping heck. Who are all these people?
Yeah, well,
But I'm going to enjoy it.
yes, you will.
good.
You will.
Yes.
It's
Because
nothing
when
like.
I tell you what, the only thing I'm gonna like is I can get a bus pass.
Oh yes,
And I can go to Cowbridge, I can go to Llantwit Major,
yeah,
I can go anywhere I like
that's great.
with a bus
Great.
pass.
Yes. Well, it'll expand your life, not
Yes.
reduce it.
Yes.
That's what happens when you're 60.
I can go out and about and see all these places. And it's not going to cost me nothing.
No, that's great.
No.
And we got some people in Lantert Major. an
Yes.
Yeah, well,
odd
basically, a reason why Henry goes to Lantric Major because he goes to see his drug dealer.
Oh,
Oh, we'll have to
But,
do
well,
it. We'll have
well, I
to
think
do a Lantric
I'll have
Major.
the
I'll
thing
have
is,
to make friends with him.
as Henry isn't listening at this minute, right, and he's got nothing to do with this conversation, he can't even respond.
No.
He
No.
can't even deny it. You know.
Well, I have told Glenn,
But-
I have told Glenda, and of course we will arrange
Oh,
a little
yes.
small
Yes.
meeting.
Yes.
You know, at one Thursday, I think.
What
Well,
about
the reason why Henry doesn't stop coming to the live classes is because he really missed Glenda.
Oh,
Because
Yeah.
what it was, you see, Henry, right? Henry got accused of having an affair with Glenda, and he wasn't allowed to go to the classes.
Carl, you shouldn't. Oh.
Ah,
Anyway,
no. And
Yeah, go on.
I'd love to have a meeting with Glenda and the other one,
Dorothy.
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 Oh, I think we'll have to go.
Oh, she needs to know that my brother Tim
Is a saint.
He's gone. He's got a partner now.
he's found a lady.
Found.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, what the hell's that got to do with Glenda?
No,
Well,
it's
he's
nothing,
gone
it's
to
Dorothy.
he's gone to Port Talbot.
Dorothy was very concerned about him, I think.
Yes.
So,
What? Hang on. Dorothy was concerned about Dell's brother.
yeah, well, you know, she only met
Because
him
he used to come
once.
with us and never, had a pint or two
Yeah.
and used to bring him back home but he's now found
Where did he meet her?
online.
Oh,
Oh no.
Yes, but he knows her from years ago.
Oh, that's
So,
nice.
Oh
yes.
right.
So it's sort of they've got back together.
Second chance.
Oh, I tell you what, when I see him, when he comes to Bethcall now, because he's still got his flat, but he's staying in Port Talbot. To come back to see, he's absolutely different.
Yeah.
Oh, he's,
Different.
you can see that he's happy.
Yeah.
He's found his soul mate.
Yeah, lovely. Lovely.
Yes.
Oh, I'll have to come down and see
I'm
you
happy
soon.
about that.
Yeah. Well, what we'll do, I don't know whether we should, I don't know what we should do really, but we'll try and get a meeting arranged, all right?
Yeah.
And
The old group.
get the old group together and
Yes.
have a coffee. Or we could go for soup in Asda, which is £1. Soup and endless coffee for £1.
Soup.
It's for poor people, but I think they don't mind anyone having it,
Oh, I tell you what, Dan. After Saturday,
Yeah. You'll be
I'll
needing
be
your soup.
60. I'll be 60.
Yeah.
So I'll be eligible.
Oh, yes, you will.
I'll be a pensioner.
Yeah, we should go to, I mean,
Oh, there's
Vera
loads
love
of places
it,
we can all
free
go.
soup. Well,
Yeah,
soup.
we can show our cards and go
Yeah.
pensioners. Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Oh, Carl, thank you.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure, and thanks for hanging on to talk to Anne.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you,
Carl.
Anne. We
Thank
will
you.
sort something out.
We will. I keep trying to, get Glenda, pin her down, but she's always got,
I bloody wouldn't.
she's got family, you know, and
Oh, I know.
she's
But her
always,
family comes from the same
yeah,
place as my
Heronsbridge.
sister-in-law
Hmm.
in Luton.
Oh,
Ex-
yeah.
oh, you just popped up on my screen.
Oh, your sister-in-law.
Yes. No, you are.
Oh, I have. Oh, well, I've been here all the time.
No, it just went blank, and all of a sudden
All
it
right.
came up. I can see Carl as well.
Yeah.
Hiya, Carl.
We've been here.
I am, man.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah, Thursday and Friday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday are the good days for Glenda. So
Right.
you know,
Monday, I've got lots of appointments with
oh,
the
the other
GPs.
thing is half term. You know,
Sorry.
one week is half term, isn't it? So
Yes, we're away. We're up in
yeah.
Llandudno.
So we could come down to Carl. Oh, Carl, I've got something to tell you.
What's that?
All out.
My friend, my best friend from college,
Yeah,
who's my age,
yeah.
she's my age.
Well, don't tell.
They've just moved to Carmarthen. They've just moved to
I
the
thought you were going to say
A40.
she's got the hots for me or something.
The A40.
All right.
Are you anywhere near the A40?
Ask her if she's anywhere near Llanybother.
Oh God, I don't know. She's near a lot of takeaways.
Yeah, well, I got to be honest with you, and that's no good to me, is it?
No, I think it's sad. No, well, the thing is, the reason I'm thinking about it is the fact that she was born on a farm and she was used to the animals, you know.
Sorry, everybody. I have to go.
And
All
oh,
right, Del.
bye, Del. See
Del,
you
So-
soon.
we'll see you next
See
week,
you
Del.
Lovely to
week.
see you
See you
all.
next week.
Take
Okay.
care, man.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Take care,
I'll
bro.
switch this off.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye,
She's,
bro.
she's got you know, she's had chickens for years, you know, and but she had to give them up because
All right. That'd work sometimes.
no, I mean they're artists, they don't do much. She's been in Bristol for about 2 years.
Yeah.
And they just moved to Carmarthen because she's from Llandisel. Llandisel?
Transition, yeah. It's not far away.
Yeah. So anyway, not to worry. You just carry on. I'm not going to make a big thing out of it. She might come and have a look at your roundhouse one day.
Well, ask her if she's anywhere near Llanybother.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Okay. Thank you, Carl. Bye-bye.
Anyway, my pleasure. I will speak to you soon.
Yes, speak to you soon.
Okay.
Bye.
No, no, Anne.
No night. No night.
No, no. Take care. Bye.
God bless.
Drink more milk.
Oh
No,
God.
no.
I
Milk.
can't be
Good.
off. Right, I'm going to leave now.
Bye.
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 Bye. Oh.
Bye. 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 Right, everybody. That's thanks for watching that. And I think there's one of you online still. And I just go through. We don't usually have anything in the chat box. Let's just see what these mean again. Right. Del, Owen to everyone. I am back, Anne. Right. Okay. Thumbs up. And then Henry says you can buy Book of Ash Jasher on Amazon. Okay, that's good. And then Del says, right, rather than wood, stone, then wood. Right, okay. Yeah, makes sense, sort of. Or building in wood and then stone and then in wood. Right, okay. And Del then says, does the settlement up towards Regos, which is blind Blind Rhondda. That's it, Blind Rhondda. There's a settlement up towards Regos, which is Blind Rhondda, north of Treherbert. Top of Rhondda, be like that. No, it's sort of much later Iron Age, right? Adele, tidy, nice laughs when driving towards M4. What the hell's that got to do with anything? These same strange stuff in this chat thing, and then a smiley face. On your march, get set, go. Nothing else. I like the chat thing. It's like a really weird thing at the end of a lecture. People's personal thoughts. Anyway, thanks for watching. Take care. Bye. No night. Don't forget to like, subscribe. No night.